Hello everybody and welcome to my deck profile for Final Fantasy TCG. This is a deck that I've been working on since I started playing the game, which was not too long ago, and plenty of improvements to come as new cards are released or I play more and learn more about the game. But anyways, without further ado, this deck is focused and centered around Noctis, the main character of Final Fantasy 15, and we want to optimize his ability as best we can. So what he does is, whenever you take damage, you can choose up to one forward, so you don't have to, and Noctis and that other forward fights. This is great because we can destroy forwards that otherwise did not attack or are generating some sort of pressure for our game state. Noctis also has another ability where if you take 6 damage and he's the expert or he's on the field, you just break something. So he can turn the tide at the very brink of the game, which is really nice. His final ability is that you can pay 4, 2 of which has to be Earth CP, in order to make the next damage he takes 0, meaning he can trade things that are even to his power and still come out okay. He can block multiple things, and we play other cards in this deck to make it so he can keep fighting forever. Since we're playing Noctis, we're definitely going to play Gladiolus for this deck. Our game plan is to have Noctis out all the time, so Gladiolus is effectively a 2 CP 9k body. This is an amazingly cheap body. The only restriction is you have to pay with an Earth or with 2 Earth CP, which is fine. We discard 1 card with Gladiolus. We tap 2 Earth, so there's Gladiolus. It's not a big restriction. We play mostly Earth with a splash of water, so it's not a big deal for us. Gladiolus, outside of being a big body, he can also do a 7k board or damage to all opponents, so it's non-targeting. It can deal with Swarm. It's kind of costly and it requires discarding Gladiolus and paying 4, so we probably won't use it that much. He's just mainly a cost-efficient body. Since we play Noctis and Gladiolus, we also play Ignis. Ignis. Ignis is coming, don't worry. Ignis is a 7k 5 cost that can search for Noctis on when he's summoned or if he is triggered as an EX burst. This gives us more consistency in terms of getting Noctis, and also he gives all Final Fantasy 15 forwards 1k and Brave, meaning Noctis and Gladiolus can swing and still defend. This makes Gladiolus a big threat and makes Noctis even stronger with his ability to trade. Because now you can trade 7k for free, or you can go even with an 8k unless you pay 4 CP. I can see him being a 3-off once more Final Fantasy 15 cards are released, and he is definitely a very strong part of the Final Fantasy 15 engine. Next up is Ingus. He's your generalist buffer. He's there to support everybody, not just Noctis, with another 1k increase in damage. He also has a combat trick by dueling a couple backups or forwards to give 2k as a combat trick if you really need that push, but you probably won't be using an ability that much. He's just another body for you, which synergizes with some things that you'll see later on. He's a cheaper but not as good Ignis, but at the very least he can buff other things that you will see after this. We play 3 Wool because Earth Legend Wool is just a freaking amazing card. He's one of the best cards in the game. He allows you flexibility, allows you to, when you go into combat, choose 2 of the 4 following abilities, give 2k to one of your forwards, deal 4k to a dual forward. Your opponent can't target you with their EX bursts, so any damaging EX bursts he can kind of avoid, or he can make it so your opponent can't use it. And he also gives one of your forwards Brave if he wants to, so you can kind of sneak in some early damages while your opponent's setting up while still being able to block, which is nice. And with Varsona Noctis out, you can go in a combat phase, give Noctis 2k, ping Varsona, now Noctis can kill anything 8k or below, which is nice. We run 2 Cecil EX. Cecil EX is an amazing card. I would run 3 off if I didn't feel the need to cover more bases, because he synergizes really well with Noctis. When he enters the field or when he's triggered as an EX burst, he can choose one duel forward and break it, and if the cost is equal or less to the amount of damage you've taken during the game, you can break it. Early on, you know, if you're fighting a Zidane or something at the 2 CP Water Legend Zidane, you might get a lucky Cecil break, who knows. Or later on, you know, you summon him with Noctis on the field, then you use his special ability, Dark, where you discard a Cecil, he does 1 damage to you, and then we break anything that is of the same cost or lower to the amount of damage you've taken. And let's say we're at 6 damage, or when the Cecil hits us and we go to 6 damage, Noctis breaks something immediately, Cecil breaks something else, Noctis trades with something. That's 3 forwards dying with just that one move. We don't want to see him too early because he's kind of expensive and not useful early. He is a big body, so that's nice. And if we want to really use his ability, we would just minor him back. We run 2 minors in this deck, so having 3 I don't think is necessary. Next is our toolbox card, Noct. Noct is really useful for forwards that we can't kill through sheer power alone, or monsters. We use him mainly for his ability to target 1 forward or monster and pay double the cost to destroy it or break it. It can be useful for monsters that are seen more often, that are like 1, 2, or 3 costs, and sometimes he can win you games just by, you know, breaking an opponent's core strategy, which is really nice. The next toolbox card is Vanille. She's just a body that keeps recurring. We've played 3 Fanfrits in this deck, so she's a great Fanfrit target because then you can just banish a Hekasanker and bring her back. She's great for stabilizing, or, you know, even let's say you have a bad hand but you see her, you summon her first, so she can kind of keep you alive while you're getting your board state going, which is pretty nice as well. Not much to say. We don't always run her, and for decks that are more draw heavy, I would recommend Calbrena because you can probably justify paying extra to have Calbrena keep being a forward. Calbrena has one advantage over Vanille, and that is that Calbrena can escape Shantoto, which is great. Vanille cannot. Next up, we're going to go into our water forwards, and the first forward that we have is 2 Porom EX. It's 4 costs. When it's summoned or hidden as an EX ability, we get to look at the top 3 cards of our deck, pick 1, and then put the other 2 back. This helps us immensely with molding our hands and getting to our important cards faster. While she's on the field, she's also another body for Fanfrit and then Cloud of Darkness to use, and she also can negate once per turn, or not once per turn. You have to duel her, so it's basically once per turn, to negate an action ability. While you have big bodies on board, and you have Porom to, you know, stop some combat tricks, the pressure's on for the opponent, man. It's tough. We also run 2 Zidane. Zidane's was a questionable ad for me, but he's been growing on me. He's really freaking good. Turn 1 Zidane is stupid good. If you have 6 cards in hand, he can't be blocked, and if he does damage to an opponent, you draw 2 cards. This means that in the early game, the opponent has to overpay to deal with Zidane, which is great because there's answers for your main strategy that, you know, is already used on Zidane, which is great. He's a fan-free target because it's cheap. He can reduce power by using his special ability, meaning Noctis can trade for more things. And he's also... Oh man, if you are stuck in a deadlock in the mid to late game and, you know, nobody wants to really swing, you summon Zidane, you know, like, clock's ticking for them. You have big bodies on board with Gladiolus, Cecil, Noctis, and all these earth buffs, and 10k, 11k bodies, and you have Zidane just poking at the enemy. It can be pretty strong, but he's not the focus. We also run 1 Ephemeral Summoner. We ran 3 before, but I really don't use it that much. It can be a good deterrent early on. Let's say you summon it and you put Fanfrit on top. Now your opponent doesn't really want to attack because they don't want to lose anything. But really, realistically, I would much rather discard it for water CP early on. I only really want to see it once I have Noctis and Varsona out, or Varsona out. So, you know, it's not It's not really that important, and it's just a one-off, just for an extra name that's cheap as well, kind of like Zidane. So we can swarm the board quickly if we need to for the next card that we have, Cloud of Darkness. Cloud of Darkness, what she does is she reduces, when she summons, you pick a forward. It reduces by 2,000 power for each forward on your field. So we have our Chocobros, Noctis, Gladiolus, and Ignis out. When you summon Cloud of Darkness, that's 8k. Something's dying immediately, which is great because it's not breaking an enemy or breaking a forward, so you can get around kind of annoying sticky forwards that can't be broken, things like Arden. The next card that we play, or the last card that we play, is Helicanarsis. It's a one-off, it's very situational. You won't really use his action ability or her action ability that much. Discard 2 summons to break a forward. The main thing about Helicanarsis is that we want to maybe search it out with a mob at the right time to kind of blanket negate everything on your opponent's field, so we can deal with problem cards that can't be, let's say, targeted by abilities. So now we blanket them, they're weaker because they don't get buffs. We can Varsona Noctis things, we can swing over them, we can target them with Noct or Hecatoncheir. It's a very situational card, but it can be immensely powerful, played at the right time. Now we will talk about the backups for this deck. We'll start off with 2 Varsonas. Varsona is awesome because it allows us to be more proactive with Noctis' special ability in terms of fighting other forwards. It also is a great pressure tool early on. Doing 7k for just 1 point of damage is very cost efficient and will force your opponent to not play optimally. They can either set up their backups while you generate forward advantage and attack while you eliminate their forwards, or they can overpay for a big forward that you can't kill with just Varsona. But then, you know, now you have the card advantage to keep building your board while positioning or posturing to kill things with Varsona. The ability to have Varsona active during your opponent's turn is crazy because you can force your opponent into bad decisions or less than optimal situations just by having Varsona there, or Noctis and Varsona, because you potentially can do 14k or more with with those 2 cards alone. And if you have 2 cards in hand, or even 4 other backups, Noctis is guaranteed to be safe. So it's very hard for your opponent to play the way they want to. Next up, we play 1 Mog. Mog is just a great searcher. We only play 1 of him because backups, I think, are, for this deck at least, should be more relegated to protection and creating pressure for your opponent. Paying 2 and breaking Mog to search for something is something I don't see being done early. It's very costly. It's good for like mid to late game where you need certain answers to certain board states, like I need a Helicanarsis, or I need another Cecil, or maybe I need a Zidane or something. We also play 2 Leo, another cheap Earth backup. Leo is MVP. He can protect some of your backups, a lot of your forwards. He can't do anything to Diabolos, but he can cover a wide variety of things that can be problematic to your forwards. I love him. He always gets good mileage. I would recommend using him. And then we also play 2 Enacross. Enacross just makes your Earth forward stronger. In this deck, we also run Minwu, so having bigger bodies makes it extremely difficult for you to be removed by damage, because your opponent can't chip you, and there's not many cards that does like 9k or more just with 1 single cast. So the more power you have, the stronger your board state becomes. We must recover, so we play 2 miners to get back backups and forwards when we need them. It's basically a 2 CP backup, but the earlier you play it, the later you play it, the better it is because you have more variety of backups to pull from. Like, let's say you pop Leo early on, now you can get Leo back and you play it again. You have you have protection from 1 Leo. You get a lot of mileage out of that. Minfilia, we play 1 Minfilia. Minfilia does the same thing, except she can break light or dark characters, so we can deal with like Veritas, not the best answer, but it's an answer. Yuri, or Varsona, or Cosmos, or Chaos, or Camelot, things of that nature. And she is also better played later. The later you play, the more choices you have to bring back. She's not tied down to just backup or forward. She can get any, and so the later the game goes, the more recovery you get with Minfilia. Now we're gonna go into our last last backup, and that's Shantoto. She's basically a forward, right, guys? When she enters the field, she removes all other forwards from the game because, you know, she likes her alone time. She's stupid OP. She counters all elements. This card is busted. Doesn't really deal with monsters, but hey, I mean, if you're in a disadvantaged state, you pop that in there. It's cost efficient for you. You just eliminated like what, 4 forwards, and then you have a backup that can generate water or earth. Great. Okay, now we're moving on to our water backups. We run 2 Yuna because Yuna is just a good card. We run 4 water summons in this deck, so having to pay 1 less is great, more economy. And even if we don't get to use water summons in that capacity, she's a water backup, and we splash in water in this deck, so having a water backup as soon as possible is really important. Yuna's good, she's not great, but you know, she's just free efficiency. We run 1 white mage for decks that like to dull or freeze. Any ice decks, you know, they can come in clutch where you break it, you activate everything. I've actually thought of running 2 white mage, 1 Yuna, just because having a more consistent way to answer dull and freeze would be nice over having Yuna there, but that requires more playtesting. Next up is the last key card in our trinity of Noctis Varsona, and that's Minwu. Minwu allows Noctis, once he gets more power, to trade with bigger things for free, meaning when you are on the defensive, your enemy has to think long and hard about how to deal with Noctis, how to deal with Gladiolus, how to deal with Roll, how to deal with Cecil, and it's great. It stops you from getting pinged out by Yuri Chalinka, Hanalin, things like that. Valafor. It's a very strong card. It has always been strong, and it works really well in this deck because this deck likes to fight. And lastly, we have 2 Lunafreya. Lunafreya costs less when we have a Final Fantasy 15 forward, so there's more efficiency there. We're most likely going to always have a Noctis out or Gladiolus or Ignis out, so it's nice to have a cheaper backup. It's a 3 cost if they're out. And on the opponent's turn, you can break Lunafreya to bring back a forward once they go into the break zone. So she basically, for 1 CP basically, you can kind of get back like a Cecil to use his auto ability again, or a Cloud of Darkness, or a Porom, or even bring Noctis back for another block, which is great. I've also considered running 3 Minwu and 1 Lunafreya. It really depends on how you like to play, but for now 2-2 is good. You don't really need Minwu, you don't really need Lunafreya, it just makes your board state stronger. The last section of this video will be for the summons. We start off with 2 CP Hecaton Chair. It's basically Noctis, but I can use it on bigger bodies. It's there as a combat trick in case that they weren't expecting it. It's there for when Noctis can't really handle certain things. We have other forwards that can, so we use Hecaton Chair for that. It's very situational. It's also a removal target for Manil if she ever dies. Definitely not necessary, it's just there just in case. And then we have 3 CP Hecaton Chair. You can replace it with 2 Hecaton Chair and like 1 EX summon like Titan or your Jimbo, but I really like backup removal. If you see your opponent overpaying for something early, or like, you know, turn 1 Star Sibyl or turn 1 Maria or things like that, you can break it and really put them behind. You can also use it as a combat trick, break the things, the backups that give your opponent extra power, or even break Minwu and, you know, ruin their plans. It's nasty, it's great, and backup removal is kind of rare in this game, so, you know, we have it, we should abuse it. For the water summons, we play 3 Famfrits. This is kind of like ballsy, but I think non-targeting removal is also hard to come by, just like backup removal, so because we have access to it, we should really use it. It's also why we kind of play wide, so we can kind of get rid of things without hurting ourselves too much. Like, if you lose Sedaine, it's not a big deal. If you lose Ephemeral Summoner, it's not a big deal. You lose Porum, you lose Cecil, things like that. It's not going to set you behind. If we only focus on the 3 Chocobros, then yes, we should only play 2 or 1 or something like that. But we have a wide array of forwards to use, and we also have Vanille, and that's also a great way to always have a fan-free target. Or a Veritas target, for that matter. Lastly, we play 1 Shuchilin. It's situationally good. If you get it on EX and the ability doesn't do anything, at least you get a draw. The safer ratio would probably be 2-2. 2 Fanfrit, 2 Shuchilin, but hey, I mean, I like to risk it for the biscuit, and if you trigger on EX burst, you don't really need to use it. Fanfrit, I think, is just really, really powerful, so... And that's all there is to the deck. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.